welcome to this video, and in this lesson we're going to go ahead and slightly diverge from where I was originally planning on doing for the next 3 videos, which is going to take all the images in one video and save them, then the next video do the HTML, then do the CSS. I'm going to do something a little bit different that's going to give us a better initial payoff, where we're just going to basically tackle each section of this homepage design in terms of saving the images that are just relevant to the top portion, and then doing the HTML and then doing the CSS all in the same video. So this will be split up into several different videos, but this way at least we get a payoff and we can actually see it start to function here in this very first video. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is just save the logo, and then we're also going to save the background as images. So let's go ahead and get started. With the move tool selected and auto select layer selected, make sure we have the logo layer selected. Hit Control A and then Control C, and then we'll go to File, New, Control V to paste it in there. And also, by the way, if your background is not already transparent, the way you do that is just go to File, New, and set background contents to transparent, and that way when in the future when you open it up it'll be set at transparent. So we want that background to be transparent. So we're going to go ahead to go to File, Save for Web, and I've learned the shortcut, so I'll be using that instead of the menu from now on. Alright, and doing that, it brings up this dialog where we can specify the different types of files that we want to save. I'm going to use PNG 24-bit for this, and we'll keep it on transparency. So I'm just going to save it. Now I've created a directory structure. Basically this is HTML, and then in there we have images. I'm going to create another one called CSS, and then also JS. Okay, so we will obviously save this in the images folder, and for this we'll call it logo, and then just hit enter. Alright, now we want to do the background. So one thing I'm going to do real quick is just hide this and hide the logo layer as well. That way we can kind of see a full portion of the background. Now what we're going to do is zoom up and make sure that's normal. We're going to use the rectangular marquee tool to select a portion here which will repeat. And so I'll let that go, and let me just zoom out till I can see the bottom, and then just hold Shift to add to this selection and make sure you get it perfect. And it's okay if there's, well, I can go ahead and hit Alt and delete that one portion of pixels down there. Alright, and if I zoom up, I did get a little bit too much there, so what I'll just do is hold Alt and shave off that extra pixel. Now we'll go ahead to edit copy merged, Control N, and then Control V. Now save for web. This time it'll be a PNG 8. And we'll call this top-bg. Okay, so let me go ahead, and we're at 100%. Let me just zoom out a little bit. And let's bring these back real quick. Okay, so now we've saved basically 2 graphic files for the background, which will repeat, and also the logo. Up here, this is the actual navigation, but there's no images that are part of this, so we don't have to worry about saving this as a separate image. This will be achieved through HTML and CSS alone. Same with the We Design Superior Logos and the sub headline. So that's the portion that we're going to focus on getting ready for this initial video. So for our HTML and CSS, we're going to use what's called Bootstrap. Now this is from Twitter, and what it is, as it states here, is just a sleek, intuitive, and powerful mobile-first front-end framework for faster and easier web development. Now what this basically means, it's basically portions of CSS that are already defined when you download it, and it has really good documentation on how to use it, and it's all structured here to let you know basically how you can use this in your designs to speed up the process of developing responsive websites. So of course our design is going to be responsive, but I'm not going to get too much into giving you an overview. I'm just going to jump in and you'll learn naturally as we progress. So the first thing you need to do is just download Bootstrap. And let's see, I've already downloaded it, but if I open it up here, we'll see we have a folder called dist. Now remember I created those two folders, CSS and JS already, and you can just take both of these files or just one and go ahead and extract them to your CSS folder here, and then same thing with the bootstrap.js there. Now one thing that is kind of unfortunate is right now Bootstrap 3 is relatively new, and there's an option called Customize up here, but unfortunately it says until RC2 Bootstrap 3 Customizer will be disabled. So we're going to be customizing portions of the Bootstrap build that we downloaded by hand, and usually it's made kind of a lot easier if this customizer were available, but no big deal. This way, at least, you'll be able to get a more solid understanding, if you're new to CSS, how to tweak things yourself manually. Okay, so now that you've downloaded it and you've extracted those files, now we're going to open up our code editor. Now I'm using what's called Sublime Text 2. You can just Google it, and if you're interested, you can buy it. Otherwise, if you have no money, you can use Notepad just for writing out the code. But this formats the code pretty nicely, and it's pretty popular. So again, I've opened up the folder HTML, and you can see if we open this up, you'll see that we have the files in here. I had to pause it real quick and add those because I didn't for the video. And so also we have our two image files. So now we need to create an actual HTML file here. So I'm going to go to New File, and we'll just save this as index.html, and so we're going to go ahead and get started with just hand typing out the code for the head. So I'm going to get started here with typing some HTML out, and if you're already familiar with this, you can just kind of fast forward just to get to the portion where you already see me typing this out. We'll go ahead and put the head here, and if you're unfamiliar or you're new to HTML, I'm not going to sit here and explain every single tiny detail, but you'll naturally understand as we progress how everything kind of sort of works. We'll give it a title, logodesign.co, logo design and visual, identity professionals. Alright, so this tag here is important for making our design responsive. Make sure we don't have any spelling errors there. Alright, and we also want to make sure we link our Bootstrap CSS files here. So I'm going to copy this and paste it into here, and then you can just make sure you have the same exact thing. So we have the Bootstrap CSS linked here, which is in this folder, and then also we're going to have a custom.css file that we'll use for custom CSS for our site. And then also we need to get the Bootstrap JS file linked as well, so I'm just going to link that right here. And also we need a copy of jQuery, so I'm going to do that as well, just above it. and I pasted this in here. And if you need this exact link, you can paste it in. You just type in jQuery and Google API in Google, and you'll be able to find that. Okay, so that takes care of the head. So now we need to put the body tags. And this is where everything will go. Now, if you're familiar with Bootstrap, Bootstrap 3 is quite a bit different than Bootstrap 2. So the way the scaffolding and the div names work and all that is quite different. But if you switch back to the CSS area, it'll basically tell you exactly what you need to know. So let's go ahead back here real quick. And the first div that we're going to add is div class equals container. All right. And inside here, we're going to add a div class equals row. Now, what this class will be for, this div rather, will be for this row up here. So this is going to be div that will basically encompass these two portions, the navigation and the logo over here. All right, so let's go ahead and continue on. And inside here, we're going to add the link for the logo. So ahref equals, for now, I'm just going to put the number sign, and then class equals Nav Bar dash brand. And then the image tag here, logo.png. And close the tags up. And so what this is, this class here, this is predefined Bootstrap class for the CSS for Nav Bar brand. And what that does is just automatically adjusts the logo right here based on the device that you're viewing it on. So it's just a quick way to get some alignment going for the responsive aspects. All right, so now under here we have a little bit more HTML to write out here for the nav bar. So let's go ahead and get started with that. There's a div class equals nav bar, and this is also a predefined Bootstrap CSS class. All right. And inside here, we're also going to have a container. And inside the container, now we're going to have a HTML5 element. Button type equals button. Class equals navbar toggle. Data dash toggle equals collapse. And data dash target equals navbar responsive collapse. Now, basically, I took this HTML and I just copied it and pasted it when I initially went to set this project up before recording, and that is right here. Once we go down to components, we have navbar, and then we have responsive navbar. So this is where this code comes from, right here that we're about to type out. So what this does, the responsive navbar, is you'll see pretty shortly once we progress in this video, when we scale in the width of the browser, the navbar will automatically transition from looking like this and then into a mobile-friendly version, which will drop down. So let's go ahead and continue. And I'm going to go back here and just copy this portion. All right, and actually I'm going to delete that portion. Okay, and then underneath there, I'm going to copy again. Actually, I'm going to do it from a different file off of my other monitor. I'm going to copy and paste, and then I'll quickly explain what's going on here. Alright, so now we have a div class equals, and this is basically this line right here. And let me go back, and then we have an unordered list, which actually serves for the HTML for the menu. And what we have here, so the div class is nav collapse, and then we also have a secondary collapse, and then a nav bar responsive collapse. Now, when we're talking about the data target, the target is the same class name as this. So this basically means is the links inside, or not the links rather, but the list item, the menu, will automatically be turned into a button basically for mobile. And so we also have UL class, we have nav pills, pull right, and then also my-top-nav. Now these three right here are also Bootstrap predefined CSS elements. And if you explore just a little bit in here, you'll see, for example, if you hit Control F and we put in pull right, well, then we can see that what happens when we add these. So add pull right to a drop-down menu to right align the drop-down menu. So we want to do that because we want this to be right aligned over here. All right, and then we could do this further with nav pills. So what exactly is that? Well, we can Control F, nav pills. So we could take, if we look up here, we have UL class nav tabs, or we can change this to UL class nav pills, and that gives us basically this container outside of the actual menu, or the links rather. And we want the nav pills because in our design we have basically the same sort of thing going on. All right. So then we have the actual links right here, which is portfolio, testimonials, login, and get started. And when you add UL class equals active, and again this is a Bootstrap, we could see that adding active to a specific link makes it basically, let me see here, gives us this effect right here. All right, so let me go ahead and make sure everything is good to go, and it looks like it is for that HTML. So now let's go ahead and create a new file, and we'll go ahead and save this in CSS and call it custom.css. All right, and now we're going to do the actual CSS for the background pattern. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is add a comment up here. Custom logodesign.co CSS, and that. All right, so the body tag is where we'll specify the background. Repeat -x means it will repeat horizontally. I'll go ahead and save that. And now let's go ahead and view what this looks like. So I'm going to open containing folder and double click this. Alright, so now you can see we have, this is obviously incorrect, so we're going to have a little work to do in order to get this looking like this. But we can see definitely already we have the background working for us, at least back here. Alright, so now what we want to do is do some custom CSS specifically for my-top-nav. Now remember, my-top-nav is basically this portion over here, and we're going to make the links white and a couple other things. So let's go ahead and custom CSS, get some lines to work with here, and my top-nav. And let me add a right here for the link. So this will allow us to style the link specifically. And color, FFF is white. And then also I'm going to change the font size to 1.7 EM. Now if we save this and refresh, you see that they've been added, they've been a little bit bigger and they're now white. So let's go back. I'm going to copy this and then also add some CSS for the hover state when you hover your mouse over it. And the specific color will be this color code right here, which is the blue. Alright, and then I'll paste this again and just get rid of this. My top nav margin 15 pixels 0. And so let's go ahead and view this. Alright, so now we've got the hovers working. Alright. Okay, so basically, if we bring back our browser, we'll see that we have this, basically this gray color that's going around. Now, this is real important. Basically, if you need to figure out and troubleshoot, exactly which CSS element you need to change in Bootstrap in order to do something, in Chrome, if you hit Control-Shift-I, you'll get this pop-up right here. Now I'm just going to drag this off the screen. You're not going to be able to see it, but if you select this little magnifying glass down there, you'll see that if you hover over anything, and also Firefox has a very similar tool, so you can research what exactly you need to what shortcut it is that you need to do to get that up. But it works the same way. So if you hover over anything and then click on it in that window, it will automatically select the HTML element. So we'll see that this right here is div class Nav Bar. Okay, and then on the right hand side, you'll see that it shows all of the CSS properties for Nav Bar. And we can see right here, background color has the color right there. So that's where we want to go and remove from the Bootstrap CSS file. So go back to our editor, click on Bootstrap, we can do a Control F to find Nav Bar, and you may have to find it several times to find exactly where we want to go, and we'll see it is right there. So if we delete that and save it and go back to our browser here, we'll see now we have the actual design. Alright, so now if we scale this in, we can see it begins to slightly start to work. Let me do that a couple more times. And we will be adjusting these further. So now what we want to do, make this background here to get started white, and then also invert the get started text to this color down here. So again, we can use the dev tool here by hitting Control-Shift-I, and we'll use the finder there, and then just click once there, and that gives us this right here. So it's in li class equals active, and then the link is A. So the CSS is right here, so the background color is set to this blue color, and then the color for the text is white. So if we want to find that real quickly, we'll just copy that, and then in Bootstrap we'll find right here, and then for the color, well, for the background first, we're going to make it white, and the color, we're going to go to Photoshop and take the eyedropper tool and select that right there. This is our color code down here. And then we can paste this in for color and save it. And now we have something that's starting to resemble what we have in Photoshop at least. Okay, so now what I want to do is go ahead and make the actual links, the text, we want it to be a different font than this. So what I'll do is we're going to use a font again that is called Source Sans Pro, and it's a Google Web font. So if we go here to our editor, I have the HTML already that we can include for that specific font, and I'm just going to copy it and then paste it right there. And the way I get this is if we go to Google and we just type in Google Web Font, we'll see that we have Source Sans Pro right here. But if we go here, we have all these fonts that we can use on our website. So if we just type in Source and we click this Quick Use button, we can have the option to choose all these different styles. So I chose a 300 and a bold 700. And when you do that, it automatically updates the HTML down here, and we can copy that and add it, and it gives you instructions and how to use it into the CSS. So that's just a quick tip. So now let me go to our editor here, and now that we have it included in the HTML up here, now we have to specify it in Bootstrap to use this new font that we have. So if we go to our editor here and we go to bootstrap.css and do Control F and just type in font-family, we'll start it up here. Alright, and do it a couple more times. Right here for body we have font-family Helvetica New. Well, if we change this to Source Sans Pro and hit Control S to save, we'll see it does get slightly changed. But if we want to, let me experiment real quick. Font-weight 300. Okay, that doesn't update that because that's text. Let me go down here. And I made a mistake, so I had to pause it real quick. This should be above, so that we can it can get loaded first before we reference it here in these files. So that's why, if we refresh, this will change to the correct font. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what this looks like so far. If we scale it down, and we're going to want a outline of this, so we're definitely not finished yet, but let me scroll out here, and I want to put some margin basically between these elements. So if I hit Control-Shift-I to bring that back out, you can't see it yet, and we just select once, and we could see in here be my top nav for the class that we could specify here. So let me see real quick. If we go ahead and see here that we have the right here is what we want to copy. We'll go to Bootstrap, Control find that. Sorry about that. Change this padding down from the top here from 4 to 8, and then I want to do a search for nav pills, and where it says margin left 2, we're going to change to 30 just to give them more space in between. Alright, just like that. Okay, so now let me just drag this in to see how everything's coming, and we'll have to adjust that. Okay, so when we hover over these, we could see that they are not quite white. They're still like this gray color. So basically we have to search for a hover state. So let me hit Control-Shift-I, and if we go here, we'll see it is nav lia. So let me do a quick search. Hopefully I can find this real quick. And we have LI on the hover, we have background color right here. Just change that to white. See if that affects it correctly, and it does. Okay, so let's see. If we look at our version, we have a more rounded basically container here. So we have to increase the border radius of this portion right here. So I believe that is class active. So if we just do some finding here, and one thing we could do is do a search for border radius. This may be it right here, navpils LIA. Let me just experiment and see if it is or not. I'm going to try 30 pixels just to test. And it looks like that's it, so that's good. Alright, okay, so let's see what we have here. We see that it is breaking right there, so we have to definitely address that. And so we can find out the exact portion of where it is breaking just by these rulers right here. It's by taking the font size here for these links and scaling them down. And that way it will prevent that this issue from occurring. So let's go over on to our editor here, and we're going to look in Bootstrap for a specific line here, and I'm just going to type it in at media min width, and it is right here. So if I just copy this and then paste it into our custom, close it up over here. Basically, if you're unfamiliar with media queries, this is basically what makes something responsive. So if the viewport is within 768 pixels and 991 pixels, then any of the CSS that goes here will override anything that's up here. So we just want to change the font size of my-top-nav A to font size 1.4 EM. And we can add important to make sure that actually works. And font size up here by default is 1.7, but if we change to 1.4 and we refresh, now we can see that it scales down slightly. So you can see how it kind of changes, and that's the point where it scales down. And then this portion is when the menu is changed for cell phones basically, or any other small device. Alright, so now what I want to do is get a bar that shows up here. So if we hit Control-Shift-I, and make sure this is selected, and we click right there, we see we have div class nav bar. Now we removed where it said the background color, but we can specify it in our CSS specifically for this size to be a certain color. And so if we go to our editor, I'm just going to copy this real quick, delete this stuff in the middle, and this one is just going to change to max width 767. So anything inside this portion will pertain to smaller viewports. So the CSS for that was nav bar, and let me delete that. Background dash color is, let's just do white, see how that looks. And now we can see that it is now white, and of course these are not showing up correctly either, so we can adjust those. And so let's go to our source here, and since the colors were white for the links, all we have to do is actually I can just copy and paste this real quick. The color should be the blue color that we have. And if we save that, we can see them all now, but we don't want them to be right aligned. I want them to be vertically stacked. So the way we can do that is to take my top nav, li, display block, clear both. And now they are also kind of right aligned, so let's go fix that. And this will just be my top nav, just that container, and this will be float left important. Alright, so now we have an issue where these are kind of to the right, so let's go ahead and fix that. So if we hit Control-Shift-I real quick, we'll see that we have nav pills, li plus li, we have margin left 30, so that's where we need to, that's what we need to fix. So if we just Control, copy that, and put it under here, margin left 0, save it, we'll refresh, and now we see that it's updated. Alright, and then one final thing is I want to create some basically margin here. I don't want this going straight up against the side of the device or the browser. So what we can do is Control-Shift-I, and the very first container, or the class, the div that we have is container, and so that's what we can adjust here. So if we select it, we'll see what the current CSS is, and all we have to do is go into here, Bootstrap, and we found it right here, and I'm just going to put margin or padding rather, sorry. And now we get, that gives us 5 pixels, but anyway, I may want to do it just a tad bit more than that. Alright, and that's a good portion, I guess a good place to stop right there. So in the next video we will continue on with doing the, let me zoom out here, the headline and the subheadline, and then we'll also start with this section down here. Alright, I'll see you then.